the first time I realised I'd got a subject that was not peculiarly my own, because it's very much of my generation, was when towards the end of her life, right at the end really, my grandmother began to speak a little bit about her marriage to her husband, John William Gleave, who was killed at Guillemont in France on the 30th of July 1916. And the first poem I wrote, really, that I felt I had to do it, I was responsible for that subject, was a poem in memoriam for him. I thought about him and the whole war and the whole generation of war widows, again obviously in August 2014, the 100th celebration of the outbreak of that war. The Horseshoe. This horseshoe, lost by a workhorse in that ploughland he trudged through in a fog towards Guillemont. The life shape, the opening into, the putting out from, the footmark such as a spring makes on a hillside. This well-made, useful iron thing, its finder, I, his younger daughter's elder son, have nailed it over our going out and our coming in, for luck, in honour of the forgiving earth, and in his memory who was strewn there with the iron, brass, leather, flesh, blood and bone of many men. Girl with a cello on the metro. In the crowded carriage I was given a space of time to look at her, for whom the doors had slid open, and she stepped in with the cello on her back, bright white, almost doubling her, unslung it, stood barely a yard from me who stood admiring her for the allotted stops until, entering the dark before the last, becoming visible in the window glass, quickly she withdrew a long and ornate silver pin from her black hair, and while the mirror lasted, shaped up that tumble to her satisfaction and speared it fast. I watched. The station came. She slung the cello on, the doors slid open for her, and out she stepped, into the lights, the crowd, into the city, with her hair just as she wanted it, and all her music carrying on her back. Lake. Sole self that day, with a working pair of legs, a beating heart, attentive senses, climbed high enough, far away enough, slowly against the river's hurry, quietly against the din of it, keeping close to it, and passing the highest shieling that an ash had burst, as thinking will ahead, I came at dusk to a lake in its own terrain. There the hills backed off in a spacious horseshoe. On that flat plain I was the only upright. The banks were low, looped in a contour line. The lake had nothing to mirror but the sky. Sole self I bedded down close as I could to listen, lapping, bird life homing, settling. I watched the wind shunting the low black clouds in tatters fast under a pale still ceiling. Woke once or twice feeling a breath of rain, glimpsed silver on black bits of a star figure, heard very high a flight of fellow humans touching on dawn after the black Atlantic. This one's called Eye Test. The arbor vitae is the way the brain spreads out in the shape of a tree, the tree of life, arbor vitae, from the spinal column at the back. Eye test. The ophthalmologist asked what could I see. Dead stuff floating, I replied, the usual wispy debris, and some days a black spot, a tiny black moon, slides across the right eye on a trajectory of its own. I said I liked to lie on hills under big skies, viewing only the muted red inside my lids. I can show you better than that, she said, and did. She showed me the tracery of blood on the globes of the eyes, the paths and streams of it. Her science, her instruments, gave me a joyous peace of mind. I shall lie high in the heather under the sun in a still excitement, and shut my eyes and watch the arbor vitae putting up, putting out through the rings of bone, ever more finely on the vast and painless red, branching, leafing, flowering. Happy the dead, who out of their life's deep humus show what they have seen.